CII India Retail Summit. It's my big pleasure to be present here along with all of you and to kick off this program. I'll start by welcoming Mr. Shashwat Goenka, Chairman CII National Committee on Retail and Sector Head of Retail and FMCG at the RT Sanjeev Goenka Group, and Mr. Marjan Shroff, Chairman of CII India Retail Summit. Thank you for putting this together, Marjan. It's a fantastic start to the program. And welcome, ladies and gentlemen. So over the last decade, both India as a country and in particular the retail sector has seen strong tailwinds and growth. It's grown 70% from 460 billion in 2012 to 780 billion as of this year, 2022. I started a new enterprise in the year 2013 called Urban Company, and the reason I'm standing here is I've been a big beneficiary along with the entire retail sector of the growth over the last 10 years. We've benefited from overall macro growth of the country, capital infusion into India from investors all over the world who see the retail sector in India as big and booming, talent that has been drawn into this sector, overall growth of infrastructure, both digital and physical in the country, and lastly, but in a very big way, the openness of the Indian consumer to new forms of retail and to new concepts of consumption that actually improve their station in life. In the coming decade, which is widely touted as India's decade, we see or expect about 20% of the entire global growth to be coming from India. And this means a lot of positive good things, both for the nation and for the retail sector in particular. There's wide consensus in the world that we expect India as a country to grow from 3 trillion to about 7.9 trillion by the year 2032. This will lead to disproportionate expansion of the middle and upper income segments of the country, where we expect households over 25 lakhs annual income to grow from 5 million today to 25 million, and households that have an annual income between 8 to 25 lakhs to grow from 70 million today to 165 million. So a lot of expansion amongst high and middle income households, all of which understandably is going to flow into growth of the retail sector. The entire retail sector in the same time frame is expected to go faster than the overall economy, growing from about 800 billion right now to 1.8 trillion at the end of this decade. And within this, again, if we decouple grocery and non-grocery, we expect grocery to grow in line about 2 times.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me add my own welcome to that of others. It is my pleasure and privilege to welcome you all to the 10th edition of the CII India Retail Summit. Our topic for today is Indian retail. It's not one, but many different Indias. I would like to welcome Mr. Varun Khetan, Co-Chairman CII National Retail Committee on Retail and Co-Founder Urban Company, as well as Mr. Marjan Shroff, Chairman CII India Retail Summit. Marjan, I also take this opportunity to thank you for your efforts. I think without your earnest dedication, none of this would have been possible, and we really look forward to the deliberations today. Thank you. As Varun mentioned, the Indian economy is one of the world's most resilient economies, showing signs of immense growth post-pandemic. And this is while the rest of the world is facing a looming recession. India continues to be driven by consumption, and we are observing that consumption growth is back to the positive after the 2-year COVID pause. And a large part of this has been driven by socio-economic developments and an enabling environment characterized partially by the growth of e-commerce platforms and by the enabling policy changes which the government of India has done over the past decade. India's consumption has been showing a steady and strong double-digit growth and despite the pandemic, the sector has bounced back. If I quote some numbers from the Retailers Association of India, post-pandemic, India saw tremendous recovery. In April 22, India saw a 23% increase in sales versus April 2019. In May, a 24% increase versus May 2019. And in July 22, an 18% increase versus July 2019. The overall Indian retail industry is expected to continue to grow at 9 to 10% annually to reach over $2 trillion by 2032. So I think we should be proud that we are in India and excited that we are part of the Indian retail industry. A buoyant and thriving industry, retail in India is unique. And what makes it distinctive is the diverse consumer tastes and preferences in every part of India. Be it food or apparel, the different ethnicities and cultures of the country impact consumer behavior largely. Therefore, Indian retail is not about the one-size-fits-all, as is the case of homogeneous preferences in other developed countries. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a theme for today, that India is a microcosm of many smaller Indias. The consuming classes are the strength of Indian retailing, and the consumer is constantly evolving. And therefore, retailers must also continuously diversify. Evolved Indian consumers are at ease, buying from brick and mortar retailers as well as from online players. So there is a need to strengthen omni-channel retailing. This was further fueled by the pandemic, which saw an unanticipated row of changes in consumers' mindsets and behaviors. Adaptation and adoption of technology became the need of the hour, and unknowingly this tipped many sectors on the path to a growth trajectory. Every retailer, big or small, had to catch up and digitize operations in no time. In the year 2020, after the first wave, online sales witnessed a huge surge in numbers, coming from pent-up demand. With more consumers now spending time indoors and working from home, demand for goods such as air coolers, refrigerators, air conditioners, laptops, desktops, food deliveries, and other essential retail and services touched a whopping high. And now, 2 years post the pandemic, this preference of consumers to shop through multiple channels has stayed. India's modern trade pie is only going to get bigger as per capita income rises along with more urbanization. The space is slowly maturing as players find their feet and home in their own niche markets after experimenting with various propositions and formats over the years. It is predicted that the next decade will see organized retailers focus on footprint expansion across different formats, offline and online, and this will further fuel the retail industry's growth in India. While there are multiple opportunities for Indian retailers, action needs to be taken on multiple fronts in order to achieve sustainable and profitable growth. The first step in that direction is to recognize that currently there is an interplay of several factors that are likely to shape the contours of retail in India. The new Indian consumer's expectation of local shopping is driving visual integration of regional festivals, history, art and architecture into the design of shopping environments. As I already mentioned, online sales have been gaining prominence, fueled by pandemic-related surge in demand. The country's expanding internet penetration, along with the consumer's heightened digital awareness and embracing of the convenience of delivery, is also escalating the switch to online grocery shopping. Over the next few years, it is expected that more than 25% of the growth in organized retail will come from e-commerce. As retailers expand across formats, channels, products, and services, it becomes imperative to look at ESG and specifically the role it can play in promoting sustainability. The retail industry acts as a direct link between producers and consumers and can uniquely impact sustainable practices. This in turn can encourage decarbonization along the entire value chain. Although Indian retail directly controls only about 1.5% of the country's emissions, retailers can leverage their role in the value chain to influence an additional 26.5% of India's net zero targets. With India targeting a reduction of about 45% in the carbon intensity of emissions by 2030, which is equivalent to 1 gigaton GHG emissions reduction, India's retail industry can potentially contribute a significant part of this reduction. The CII Retail Committee has worked over the last few quarters along with Tony to create a report on India's retail journey to a sustainable future. And all of us, as members of the committee, pledge our commitment to adopting the sustainable practices.
The Federation of Indian Industry and Economy have come together to prepare a roadmap for Indian retail's road to a sustainable future. The single biggest triumph for retail's journey to sustainability is focusing on reducing CO2 emissions. Thanks to retail's major influence on other related sectors, including agriculture, manufacturing, and other services, retail industry is uniquely positioned to drive this change along with the retail ecosystem. The Confederation of Indian Industry and Economy estimate that the retail industry directly and indirectly contributes to 28% of India's CO2 emissions. And retail leaders are committed to do what it takes to bring that down. Retail leaders are working on 4 dimensions to accelerate the rate of this transition. First, they are defining targets and strategies to reduce emissions. Second, they are challenging the organization to embrace end-to-end sustainability. Third, they are inspiring the entire retail ecosystem to implement solutions that reduce CO2 emissions. And fourth, they are strengthening enablers to support the transition. Broader ecosystem from government, industry, investors, and consumers are also coming together to pave the way to achieving India's sustainability goals.
Urban Sustainable Strategies, Mr. Zairus Master, Chief Business Officer at Mama Earth. Thank you, gentlemen. I'll hand over the session to Dr. Kasi to please take forward.
Good morning, good almost afternoon, everyone. It's an exciting topic that very close to my heart, and on a dais like this is extremely privileged. So to start out, retail as a sector, as other speakers, as Varun spoke about, Shashwat spoke about, is the future, contributing 20% of global growth, which is extremely high, when you talk about in the scales of proportion, a very big number. As something that comes out with this kind of growth, there is also added responsibility that would come in for this particular sector. And that's the topic that we wanted to talk about, which is India's retail journey towards a sustainable future. To start out, when we talk about sustainability, there are various different dimensions. The key topics that comes to my mind are, of course, there is emissions or the climate change. The COP27 that is going on in Egypt is an extremely important cause. Along with, there are several other issues that as it relates to water conservation, there is labor, there is business ethics, there is waste management, and so on. And as we stand today, and this is an assessment that is done by various companies, one of the key aspects, as we call as materiality assessment, that comes in is climate change. And the entire world, starting with the Glasgow in 1997, 2015, the Paris Agreement, and every year there has been this COP summits that's going on, has been talking about the impact of global warming, this climate change on livelihood. And the importance of it is paramount given when you just put facts here. Since the pre-industrial era, right, from the 1800s until now, the entire world has warmed up like 1.2 degrees. As we look ahead, just in the next 70 years, the expected increase in temperature is about 4.5 degrees. I mean, obviously, we all are goal to be net zero by 2070, which basically means that we will need to find decarbonization. And this can happen right through education, right? We can educate the consumer on one hand, but end of the day, consumer is the king and will make the choice. An example of how a consumer preference would have an impact. I mean, something that we use every day again, a product like a toothpaste. I don't know how many of you know, but it is close to impossible to find a toothpaste without a carton box on the outside. There are apparently 98% of all the toothpaste that are sold in the world comes with a carton box. And I'm sure you would have come across this, but you would question, the actual purpose of this carton box that goes on the toothpaste. The answer, it comes back to consumer preference. Various companies, consumer product companies to retailers around the world have experimented in the last 50 years to see how they can sell this without a box, but somehow or the other it has not taken up there. A simple example of how a box is serving a purpose, which is just consumer making a choice to just pick up from the shelf, is influencing an entire industry, right? If you just take the paper folding carton industry, about 4% of folding cartons or thereabouts are being, serving the toothpaste industry. So this is a good first step, but definitely, there is a lot of work that we can do. So when we look at the decarbonization solutions that spans across the entire ecosystem, there are 4 key themes that come in. There is carbon-friendly products. The toothpaste example, like I was talking about, the design of the product is our 3 key aspects. Okay? Consumer preference, consumer perception of this particular sustainable journey is the key. We want to just start a discussion on this particular topic. I would like to invite Mr. Krishnan Gupta and just start with a discussion or a question. Consumer preferences, Mr. Gupta, pretty much bakes in certain CO2 footprint. What's the role that retail can play in shaping these discussions?
Thank you. Thank you so much, CII, for this invite. It's a wonderful question, and let me share what Organic Wellness as a company is doing. We started Organic Wellness as a company with a mission to be carbon neutral. When we started this, people thought we were fools. We had no idea how challenging and how tough it was, but we are realizing it on the way, but delighted with what decisions we took. Now to answer your question, one I will answer from an Indian perspective and one I will answer from an overseas perspective. Without being into a sustainable business model, I don't think we would have even existed. There are large players, big players across the world, and for a startup to make a mark globally was not easy. Taking an example of a distributor who was from Europe, they looked at our products, the details, but they were demanding huge marketing dollars to start the business. We said we will not be able to support a lot of marketing dollars, but what we can give you is sustainable marketing story. Products which are not organic, but they are authentic organic. The discussion ended there. After a couple of months, I get a call, and the partners, they visit India, going through different big players in the business, and finally landed in our factory, which is in a real remotest village of our country. And just to cut this long story short, we are in a big game with them, and they are distributors in Europe for us. Coming to the Indian side of the business, the big retailers, they require a lot of money to list the product for the shelf space or listing space. But the moment they are understanding the kind of business we bring in, they are understanding the kind of product we bring in, the kind of story we are bringing in of sustainability, you will be surprised to know the kind of support we get by making sure these initial hiccups or initial challenges for us to enter those markets are taken away. So in short, I would say this is a phenomenal opportunity to get into the sustainable part. The gains are much larger than the pains for you.
What is your pulse on how you can educate and change the consumer perception towards sustainable products if it's not already done?
Hi everyone. To me, awareness is the key. The more aware I am, I think I am likely to make the appropriate choice. My behavior will change. So that's the starting point. And if I look at my own experience, 2006 when I saw the Al Gore's movie, The Inconvenient Truth, my paradigm shifted that night. And my interest changed. Some of the things that I started doing since then versus what I was doing before, my ambition, the career, etc. A lot of things have actually changed. So therefore, at the bottom of it, if you have to influence your consumer, if you have to influence your people, I think facts, demonstration of what cause and effect together can be, I suppose is the way to influence. And if you have got product stories which are in that space, consumers will take it. Like the example Mr. Kothari gave.
Who are the average consumers who are younger seem to have better connect, at least that's the perception. I want to just invite Mr. Cyrus Master to just share your views on how younger generation is shaping up on this particular topic.
So, I think you did mention in your presentation that any form of economic activity that we do will create some form of environmental imbalance. And I think, therefore, the challenge is that as partners to this ecosystem, how do we help? We can only be sustainable, we can be responsible. Now, this can be laid out of two things. The first one, of course, is the government will force us, our investors will say that we want to see this in you. But I think that's just half the story and really not too much. I think the real power comes alive when the consumers actually start demanding this from us. And I think that's when it's not going to be a small figment or small fragment of the ecosystem that moves to something like that, but then it's going to be a mass movement. And I think that time, two examples. One, very personal, all of us who have children. I think as we were growing up, compared to ourselves, our children are far more aware of the environmental damage that we create. My children keep telling me what is right, what is wrong, what I should not do, what I should do. And I think that to me is a lighthouse of what is going to happen. Now, is this, is it only children? Is it actually moving on to larger consumers? And again, if I were to look at it, I think in my mind it's not just an Indian phenomenon, it's actually happening across the world. So if you now look at, and look at it purely from a consumer marketing lens, purpose-led brands, okay, that's the biggest example of what's actually coming up. Purpose-led brands across the world are actually doing much better than just vanilla brands. Brands that have just got a simple consumer purpose. For example, I want to clean teeth. If my mission is that I want to have cleaner teeth, or I want to have people have nice hair or something like that. Compared to that, if you have a purpose-led brand, I think that is what is really, really better. And if I were to come closer home on that, and if I look at our journey at Mama, again, same thing, we knew that every time we would produce a consumer good, there would be some imbalance that would get created, and we said, all right, so what can we do? And we came up with a purpose, and we said that, all right, every time you purchase a Mama product from us, we will plant a tree for you. Sure, of course, we were also planning to ensure that our carbon footprints come down, our plastic use comes down, but we know that it's not going to be zero, right? It cannot go to zero at this point in time. Probably technology doesn't exist. And therefore, what can we do? And I can tell you that I meet consumers day in, day out, and a lot of consumers actually play back the story. In fact, we have a brand jingle that says, "All ye पेड़ भी लगाते हैं," and people come back, and I think that's one of the reasons why we became successful with the younger generation who actually picked it up and said, hey, these people are doing something for the environment and sustainable, and we're picking up. The second thing he said again, like he said that yes, unfortunately shampoo cannot be contained in anything other than plastic or bottles, and therefore what do you do? And so we said that we will recycle as much plastic as we use. Okay. So again, same thing. It's a small step that an organization or a brand can take, and I can tell you that consumers replay it and they come back to you, and that's the reason why the brand becomes. So at this point in time, like I said, coming back, purpose-led brand is doing much better, and that is the proof for me to say that a change is coming where consumers, young and old, are actually demanding this from organizations and brands and saying that, hey, what are you doing for the environment?
Fantastic. Maybe I would also like to invite Mr. Chakravarti.
Thanks, Vijay. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank CII, especially the leadership, Startup Man, for holding the flag of sustainability high and over the startup. We've been at it for 2-3 years, and I think it's a very important, it's a critical theme now that people put their heart and soul into. As far as consumers are concerned, my personal experiences in India specifically, we are already attuned towards sustainable living. It is only when we had a kind of the postmodern movement and the introduction of brands, etc., that we moved to kind of a Western Eurocentric where you had to have several packaging, etc. It was very, as kids, it was very simple to go to a neighborhood store and fill the bottles with oil or whatever. And that is exactly what the large formats, the Tesco's of the world are doing right now. So it is not unknown to us. So going by what Zaira said, I think there will have to be a leapfrog in terms of consumer awareness. And once that happens, it is also a question of the brands also talking to customers and reconnecting to what is inherently sustainable in terms of their thinking. So I think these are the two aspects that should be.
As a priority in your organization, and what are some of the priority items, things that you are thinking about?
Hi, good morning. Well, I'm a farmer by profession and run this brand, Two Brothers Organic Farms. When you ask me if sustainability is a top priority, I think the reason for leaving a job and getting into farming was because it appealed. The entire aspect of farming, sustainably being close to the land, being a farmer's son, that was close to our hearts. When we started this, we were bootstrapped, we were bootstrapped. Sustainability is a cost, but it is a conscious decision that we have taken and yet compelled by it. So all the electricity that we consume in our manufacturing plant on the farm is 100% solar. All the water that we consume for manufacturing, so we consume around 50 lakh liters of water in the year. We harvest 4 liters of water on the farm itself, which is recycled and used in the manufacturing plant. All the packaging that we use is glass bottles. Very difficult to deal with glass. We have customers in 52 countries. You courier glass, it's difficult how it, whether it will leak, whether it will crack, break and stuff. We figured out the fitment, that's not plastic, that's not an air collar. There's a cardboard packaging, you put the bottle inside, it sustains a load of close to 500 kgs and a fall of 40 feet and doesn't crack. It took us time, effort, cost. We shared what we were doing with our consumers and they helped us share the costs. So all our packaging is 100% renewable. And I think even the business per se, the profession that we are in, instead of releasing carbon dioxide, the kind of farming we practice is regenerative organic farming. I'm sequestering carbon dioxide into the soil. I think very few of us, or I don't know how many of you know that the major source of carbon dioxide is tilling soil and burning farm waste. It's nothing compared to your industrial and your vehicle pollution. Close to, I think, 40-45% of the world's carbon is stored in the soil. The more you till soil, the more you burn farm waste to release that carbon. The kind of farming we practice, regenerative organic farming, ensures that carbon is sequestered in the soil, and it's an acid when it's in the soil. It's turned to carbohydrates, it's turned to various other forms of nutrition for the microbiome that goes in the soil. So I think you have to look holistically and make it a conscious decision to embrace sustainability.
Business exists due to our business model with a purpose and a cause. Every product we sell supports everyone in the chain. It's a win-win for everyone, starting from mother earth to the farmer, to the distributors, associates, and consumer and environment as a whole. And unless we have this business model, this chain, I don't think organic wellness as a company will exist. And the best part is the way we have visitors coming from India and across the world to this remotest village where still getting an internet connection is a problem, getting a power is a problem. Even for getting a small nail, we have to go maybe 40 kilometers from the location we are located. It's an amazing journey what we have done so far, and my only request is there should be more companies going to these remote villages, because big cities are already bursting at seams. We are sitting here in Delhi, where the challenges are. So we have to create jobs. We have to move to these locations, and that's where my personal feel is sustainability begins.
The higher cost. Is it true to begin with? Or what are your views?
Sustainable efforts from where we stand today with the evolved lifestyle, like this what Mr. Chakraborty was saying, I think it will come at a price. But there are also low-hanging fruits many of us can adopt. Not everything is very expensive. Title in the company are into multiple product categories. So some of the we looked at the sustainability solution more holistically because we design, we produce, we distribute, we sell. So, and retail stores are scattered all around the country. Therefore, it may not be possible for us to sort of solve every store by store issue. So, therefore, aggregated approach towards energy conservation, moving towards 100% green source, and secondly, on the water side, being water neutral. The idea is to make sure that as much as we consume, can we replenish back to the earth. I think there has been some significant progress in that space. Coming to the retail area itself, there are the choices that we make in terms of lighting, more efficient lighting, higher lumen power wattage, air conditioner that we choose, more efficient, VRL versus inverter type. Every 5 years, retail formats go through innovation. I'm basically asking this question. These are not Bible quoted items. So can it wait for 6 years? And can we actually recycle, retain a lot of our materials, flooring, ceiling? In fact, some of our formats we are getting rid of fall ceiling altogether. Wherever infrastructure provides options, we are actually waste generator. The big shift that is happening in our thinking, which is moving to action soon, is the approach of product, credit to pay approach, right from design to the disposal. That's not something that we have been thinking so much. Therefore, recycling has become a single largest agenda in our overall scheme of things. We recycle today. We have recycled straps, cases for watches. You would be surprised that we have frames that we use or make specs. We have caster-based frames today, which is a sustainable option. Then we are actually using a lot of acetate for making frames. Recycling that is painful. There are still process changes, etc. But we have decided to go through this pain, and because there is a color mix-up and all that happens.
So we started using, acetate at least 3 to 4 times in order to do that, because recycling alone can reduce carbon emission by 80 to 90%. That's an established theory. Our biggest business is in jewelry. So obviously, wood gets recycled for obvious reasons. It's noble material, you can't throw it. But earlier, business contribution of, say, exchange gold would used to be 10%, but we have changed here on this. Today almost nearly half of the gold that is used in the business is recycled gold. We encourage customers, and therefore we are buying less of gold, therefore less of mining yield and so on and so forth. So recycling has become by and large the single largest topic in everything that we do. So sustainability has become an important initiative for the company, but in terms of water, energy, and recycling are the 3 major steps that we take.
On my left, Shashwat Goenka from the RP Sanjeev Goenka Group. He is the sector head of retail and FMCG, and also along with that manages a portfolio of businesses. He's on the board of CESC Limited, First Source Solutions Limited, and founder of Within Spencer's, the brand Too Young, and one more which I think he's going to talk about. I also have Mr. Amit Datta, who is CEO of Lemarche Retail. He's a business leader with a career spanning 16 plus years in Indian retail, having worked across organizations like RB, Nestle, Accenture, HUL, Dabur, Bata, and others. For the last 4 years, he's been leading Lemarche Retail as its CEO. I also have Pushpa Vector, Executive Director of DLF Retail. She started her career at Oberoi, then worked at Jubilant before joining DLF more than a decade ago. She's been Vice President and Mall Head of DLF Promenade in Delhi, and in her current role, responsible for leadership and management of DLF retail malls, including their premium and luxury outlets, across marketing, leasing, finance, and operations. Thank you. I also have Sumit Mangalani. He is third generation entrepreneur spearheading retail operations of Delhi's iconic brand Meena Bazaar. He is a technology enthusiast as well, and has sought to implement the use of technology in women's ethnic wear, an industry which is otherwise considered traditional, but he's fusing into it the modern twist of technology, modernizing unorganized retail environment and promoting sustained and organized growth of business. And I also have Vinil Jain, who is a seasoned professional with over 24 years of experience in retail. He's currently the CEO of V-Mart Retail Limited, and in his previous stint has spent 18 years as the CEO of North India of Future Group, managing their various brands and outlets. I extend a warm welcome to all of you for agreeing to participate in this panel, and I'm sure the audience is more excited to hear from all of you than from me, so I'll stop with my long monologue. I wanted to divide the panel today into 2 halves. The first, where we take a look at the past decade. Now, each of you leads a leading retailer and brand in the country, and we'd love to hear from you. What are some unique consumer trends and behaviors that each of you have seen and capitalized on over the last decade that has led you to where you are today, that has helped your organization grow faster and more versus peers and competitors? We'll start on the left with Shashwat.
Thank you so much, Varun. Thank you for that very extremely generous introduction. So I think when I look at the past decade, there are about 4 or 5 trends/learnings that we have had, right, or that we have capitalized on. some that work, some that didn't work, and I'll touch upon a few. So I think the first trend, I think a large part of us on the panel here will agree, is a large trend, or the macro Indian trend on urbanization, right? And I think that is something that all of us here bet big on, right? And for us, that strategy has paid off well, where we have focused the growth for Spencer, say, to 35 key cities in the country, and just going deeper and penetrating deeper within those catchments and those cities. So that's one thing that's worked well for us. The second thing I think that we all tried to do again back in the day, especially for Spencer's, was we tried to copy the concept of a large box retail, which is what is prevalent in the Western world, right? Where you try and create a huge 50, 60, 80,000 square feet store, which is a one-stop for all, one-stop shop for all kind of a format, encompassing food, non-food, grocery, fashion, homeware, etc. And I think, we started off with a very simple approach of a one-size-fits-all, right? A very centralized approach. And that's when we kind of realized that India is not one big homogeneous country. It's a united country, but a country which consists, like the topic of today, of many small areas, right? And so we had to do a huge degree of regionalization, regional correction, not just in terms of assortment and price perception, but also in terms of how the stores were laid out, to navigation, to everything else in the store. For example, in the north, our primary means of communication in the store is Hindi. In the east, it's Bengali, and in the south, it's the different South Indian languages in each state, right? And I think the other trend that we capitalized on was premiumization. So when we looked at other big box grocery retailers across the country, most of them were towards the discount or either a hard discounter or a value format, right? And for Spencer, the position we took was a makes fine living affordable. And the idea was we provide value for those value seekers, but we also will provide you with an international and gourmet range of products, which will help you premiumize, which will help that evolved customer even shop, right? And that further brings me to my fourth point, which is really on an observation we had when we did that, right? Which was this huge dichotomy within that same Indian consumer. And the same consumer was not willing to pay even 50 paisa more for that 1 kilo of salt or 1 kilo of sugar or for that 1 kg of potato, but was willing to pay a lot for an imported wheel of cheese, for example, right? And I think that was a very important insight, and I think a large part of our merchandising and strategy is built on that even today. And I think something
largely based on a few aspects that we managed to focus on, right? The first one is that we had a respect for the Indian consumer, that the view on value might not be as myopic as just being led by price. Right? I think the Indian need states are fairly well fleshed out as far as the Indian housewife or the primary buyer in the store is concerned. And sometimes I genuinely believe that the eye or the touch or the feel of the Indian consumer is significantly better informative than the label on the product itself. Right? So as such, we've taken a view that majority of merchandise, perhaps even 98% plus, sells at MRP. This is not for the reason that we not want to give the pricing advantage to the consumer, but our fundamental belief that with the gross margins in grocery retail, it will not lead to a sustainable business if we go down the discounting path. And we've been successful in that because we've been able to carve out a niche, like I said, on the axis of quality, variety, and experience. The second aspect is that I think in the last decade, owing to maybe the travels or the access to information because of internet, the quest of Indians to actually give a better lifestyle to themselves and their families has significantly increased. And their ability to experiment or willingness to experiment has also significantly increased. How we actually leverage that is by ensuring that a significant part of our merchandise is of imported products and niche products. 35% of our merchandise is typically imported. And we have about 25,000 SKUs live at any point in time in the launch, giving a wide variety to the consumers to choose from. Now, while the consumer is seeking out for variety, I think the third trend is that Indian consumer is absolutely curious to know. They are willing to pay, but they are very, very hesitant to ask. Right? So a large part of the discovery for the Indian consumer largely happens online. And if you have a store stocked up with 20-25,000 SKUs, how do you actually ensure conversion rate? Which is where the experience at Namash is about bringing the product to talk to the consumer, or as we like to call it, bringing the product experience to life. So this is the challenge that I throw to my teams every time they come to me with a new product listing, as to how will it stand out in the store and communicate with the consumer, because otherwise it simply get lost. So whether it's offering guacamole as a service and making the Indians aware about how to eat an avocado, or having live counters in our stores which bring the product ingredients to life, this approach has significantly been helpful for us as far as our differentiation is concerned. The fourth really is...
So, as Shasha and Amit were talking about the grocery aspect, what we have found out in DLF malls is that really organized retailing has not come from, it's just been 2006 was the first true organized retail mall that was developed in the country. And these last 10 years, if I look at what are the macro trends, the number one trend that we believe organized retailing has brought to fore is improving quality of life of the Indian consumer. So our whole thought has been how do we improve their way people spend their weekends, the way people shop, and really improving their sheer quality of life. And we noticed that, the more we give, the more they ask. The Indian consumers are more than ready. So that's one very large element that I'd like to say. The second is that international brands came in big four. I mean, we all shop, we all understand so there was a huge rush towards international brands. And having said that, all international brands had to learn how to do retailing in India. I can tell you this, the trend was if, say, a particular very large global brand came into the country and used only viscose, it didn't work. They had to Indianize, understand usage of material, usage of styles, fits, to look at Indian consumers as such. So I think the trend is international brands started looking at Indian consumers seriously these last 10 years. Otherwise, we were largely forgotten. The third aspect that I'd like to say is that Indian brands evolved, and Sameer is here, he will vouch for this, he's been a brand ambassador of this. Indian brands evolved from just being a pokey high street shop to a brand, adapted international ways of doing business, streamlined their processes, and really created fabulous visual merchandising, etc. Today, the Indian consumer in the wardrobe has a great blend of both Indian as well as international wear. Though that's the way we also behave when it comes to food. We like Western, Asian, we also like our Indian food. So the core is the Indian consumers like the element of what is core Indian, but embellish it with what is greatly nice about international or Western way of life. And it really showed that the Indian consumer is a far more mature consumer. We did not behave like the way some of the other Southeast countries behaved, where we blindly went after what the West did. There was a clear cultural bent of how we need to perform, how we need to eat, how we need to wear, and that was core, and the Indianness was very, very essential to be exhibited. I think these three elements is how I would define the last decade. Last but not the least is the kind of food that we eat and how we behave during our weekends. What is it that we like to do? Indians, by and large, used to spend less. Discretionary spends were far lesser. If you look at how we behaved in our 70s or 80s, etc., etc. But this particular decade saw Indian consumers becoming extremely, shall I say, confident of discretionary spends. And that is where DLF malls brought to fore these four elements. I think where we have been successful is that we've understood what the Indian consumer wants, what's the ethos that they are looking for, and what makes them feel good. And we have our endeavor, and it's a continuing endeavor, to really give the consumer what they have been seeking for and probably some of the things that they have not even thought about. How they entertain themselves, how do they, what are the kind of clothes that they like to wear, and what are the kind of communities that they like to interact with. So these are
For us as a retail side, that is exactly what we have seen with our stores as well. The average ticket size has improved. From all the points that Krishna said, we as Vinamras are completely encompassing. I mean, be it the time they spend at retail stores, not only in high street but in malls. Malls have done a phenomenal job with dealing with data from India in particular of curating how a mall should be. People spend majority of their times outside home, and making that environment welcoming and inviting is something that I credit DLF in particular to doing, and that has definitely been the catalyst for the Indian consumer growth, even on an individual level, even at a retailer's level. So they work hand in hand. Be it, like I talked about, the average ticket size. Big events that happened in the last 10 years, be it demonetization, be it the introduction of GST, irrespective of anything, there are small anomalies in those months, but overall the macro trend is that average ticket size has kept on increasing. And it's increasing at a steady rate, and it is mind-blowing with which people, consumers, are spending time on themselves. That me time, spending money on themselves, making sure that the skincare is formed, making sure they're spending time in the right malls. That importance in that consumer's mind is something that has really evolved in the last 10 years. Be it with essential dressing, what they expect from a fashion retailer as well. And they have really taken great advantage of all the international and domestic brands that malls and other markets have offered. Adding to that, everybody has had to go local. What are the trends in fashion in Punjab are completely unique to people in Punjab. They have some sort of a relevance in Delhi, but Delhi and Punjab are completely different. Similarly, for fashion brands, we've had to go local. Punjab has a different mindset altogether. People in Delhi have a different mindset altogether. UP, a completely different mindset. So, within these three northern states only, you will see a complete wide range of fashion offerings that not only Vinamras but other brands also offer. And that is something which at a macro level is really phenomenal, how brands have adopted and, be it the kind of people that are influencing that culture, how they have gone from an international level to a domestic, local level is something which is really phenomenal to see.
Thanks. I think what Sasha told and the other colleagues told us what they are talking. I think generally people misunderstood India as one nation or one country. The many countries within. Okay. So each and every place is like living differently. And talking again in the context of the V-Mart, like where I think our largely like 70 to 80% of the business is coming from the tier 3 and tier 4 towns, which is like largely a rural market. And we have seen the good novelty factor in the last decade. I think almost I can say we have 400 stores today, and each and every market we have opened, it was like the first large homemade department store we opened. So we have seen the good excitement amongst the consumers and the customers. I still remember like the Bhubaneswar we opened, 3 months, 4 months continuously, 5,000, 7,000 people are standing outside of the store to enter the store. So that was a novelty factor at that point in time. Still remember the indoor, the treasure island mall we opened. 3 months, there was always a queue throughout the day. So I can say that was a good honeymoon period in the day, and that is over also. So we are now like a more matured player. So what happened like earlier I can say it's like a supply-led consumption happened, but today what is happening is like a demand-led consumption. So the awareness level of the consumers and the customers with the digital, with the evolution, I think it's really went up. So how we can match that particular part is very critical for us. So earlier we have seen like hardly few consumption events were there. These like festive again it was like 1.5 months tenure. But today what is happening, like it reduced to a hardly a 2 weeks, 3 weeks kind of a consumption event. But at the same time, many more consumption events also are there. Whether it's a wedding or it's like anniversary or birthdays and not many other like festivals again in India, you know, vary from geography to geography. So it's a different kind of thing. Earlier I can say again the offer was the main thing which attracted the customer. But today, like, you have to be more of the honest pricing. Okay, the net the behind the ownership.
Just for example, over the last 2 to 3 years, a lot of quick commerce brands have come up, right, where they're delivering groceries and essentials to you in 5, 10, 15 minutes, right? And they're essentially doing, say, what Domino's did to the food industry back in the day, right? And I think that fundamental behavior of the consumer to go after convenience is becoming more and more prevalent now, right? So I think that is one trend that I foresee, and therefore by 2032, I feel like all brands will have to have multiple different formats which will serve different shopping or trip missions for that same consumer, and will have to have an ability to be able to identify that the same consumer is the one who's shopping across these formats and will interchangeably interact with the brand across the different formats, and be it physical from say hyper neighbor, neighborhood to online or digital or even over the phone or whatever, right? And I think the other thing that I see will be a huge adoption of technology, right? And I think everyone speaks about it, but generally I see that as something going not just towards the front end on the consumer side with artificial intelligence or with virtual reality or whatever, but I see a lot of it on the back end as well, right? Where there will be a lot of predictive analytics, there will be a lot of machine learning tools that will be used to determine and improve supply chains, to improve inventories, to improve just fundamental operations for retailers. I think one of the things on the AI side that you already see today are stores like Amazon Go, right? Where you just walk into the store, pick up stuff and walk out, and everything that just gets taken care of. And I think that's just an experiment today, but I think in 10 years that may actually end up becoming quite a bit of a norm, right?
That the online players are getting a pie of the sales, and the offline players are getting a separate pie. As the cost structures will increase, this will not be substantial, or this will not be sustainable. So can we actually come up with stores or digital assets wherein both the assets are combined and the experience given is a holistic omni-channel experience to the consumer would hold the key. As a simple example, if I were to buy any fruits or vegetables today online, there is no way that I can even communicate what do I need them for. Right? If I need a banana, there is no way that any demand is being captured, whether I need an unripe one, whether I need a ripe one or an overripe one. But if I go to the store with the touch and feel, I can actually simply pick it up. Right? So, cut to the future, I'd like a scenario wherein that need state is captured, it gets translated to the store back-end operations are designed in a manner that they are able to then ship it out as per the actual need state of the consumer. And if that is done with precision, then the entire aspect of digital sales will get topped up with that touch and feel feeling along with convenience and information. Similarly, if a consumer walks into a store, I'd like our stores to be able to give absolute complete information, including price comparisons if needed, to the consumer so that he does not feel the need to actually have a disjointed consumer flow and go online to try and figure out as to what is the additional information that he needs to complete that purchase. Having said that, I also understand that this is going to be absolutely complex, but Shashwat, to your point, I think that another aspect that can be added is hyper-personalization in this, wherein if a consumer walks into a store or goes to the digital asset, we get to a stage wherein basis his dietary needs and buying habits of the past, there could also be a nudge in terms of what are the products that you would want them to buy because of whatever health benefits or causes that they stand for in the future. Because with the way Gen Z is going, I think that will become absolutely critical in terms of products keep pace because of certain causes being attributed to them. That said, Indian consumers also we are unforgiving as far as tech failures are concerned. But with magnetic architecture, will have to be absolutely robust and ensure make movements of truth every time we interact with the consumers.
Thank you for that.
Well, thank you. That was very interesting what both of you said. See, from a mall's perspective, I'll divide this into two aspects. what are the types of malls that one sees growing in the next 10 years? To add to Shashwat's point, we do think that there will be plazas, which will be neighborhood plazas, will be our answer, organized retailing's answer to online retailing.